NFL teams make the playoffs every year. That did not the year before, and this past year's playoffs was especially true. The 49ers went from the second overall pick to the second team in the Super Bowl, while the Minnesota Vikings went from an 8-7-1 team to a team that went to the divisional round of the playoffs this past year. The playoffs this upcoming season will be the same, and there will be a few teams that make the playoffs that missed the tournament last year. Some of these teams had a down 2019, or in some other cases won the offseason and have been hyped up for a few months now. There will be 14 teams this year that make the playoffs, and a few will certainly be teams that weren't there last year, and that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We start today's video in the Steel City to discuss the 6-time Super Bowl champion Steelers. For having their franchise quarterback go down as early as he did last year, they still went 8-8 and weren't a bad team despite not great quarterback play. They finished 500 with Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges leading the team, while the defense played top-notch football for the majority of the year. They finished first in turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, and every key player from last year will be back in 2020. What's even better for Pittsburgh is they have legitimate franchise cornerstones in TJ Watt, Devin Bush, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, and all of these guys are 25 or younger. They have playmakers at every level of the defense and will be a hard team to score on again, as they finish tied for 5th in the NFL in points allowed. Having Ben back should only improve the team, as without him, Rudolph and Hodges threw a combined 18 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. They finished 3rd to last in offensive yards, and if they can even be average, meaning 16th in the NFL, as an offense combined with this defense, they will surely make the playoffs. With 7 teams in the conference now making the tournament, and with a defense like Pittsburgh has, they can't be horrendous on offense. Pittsburgh has players on their offense like Juju Smith-Schuster, a 1,400-yard player in his own rights, Deontay Johnson, the next budding Steelers wide receiver, James Conner, and a 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. They narrowly missed the playoffs in 2019, and they, barring injury of course, won't miss in 2020 with the extra seed in the playoffs. Now we head to Tampa to discuss the Buccaneers, who made some big acquisitions this offseason to say the least. The reason for why the Bucs are in today's video is rather obvious, as they acquired the most accomplished player in the history of the NFL in Tom Brady, and acquired one of the best tight ends ever in Rob Gronkowski. They went 7-9 in 2019 and led the league in turnovers by a significant margin. While Tom won't provide as many exciting plays and probably won't throw for 5,000 yards like Jameis Winston did, he will provide many things Jameis did not. The first thing he will bring to Tampa, of course, is a winning culture. Tom hasn't had under 10 wins in a season, not including the 2008 season when he tore his ACL, of course, as a starter since 2002, when most of his teammates were either in elementary or middle school. The Bucs, aside from Tom and Gronk, have a solid core, as they have players like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on offense as well. Those two are currently the best receiving duo in football, as in 2019 they combined for over 150 catches, nearly 2,500 yards, and 17 touchdowns. Those two are going to be significantly better targets for Tom to throw to than he had in 2019, and should both be great players again. This team isn't just loaded on the offensive side of the ball either, as they have good players on their defense too. They have the 2019 sack leader in Shaq Barrett and Devin White, who is an up-and-coming young linebacker. Devin will be there as long as he wants to be in Tampa, as he is a speedy, rangy linebacker that can cover the entirety of the field and make almost any play. In addition to them, they drafted Antoine Winfield Jr., and their defense isn't as good as their offense, don't get me wrong, but they are formidable. This team, with the improvements they made and the 7th seed in the NFC being added, should get to the playoffs in 2020. I don't think they will win the division, as there's a team in New Orleans that is pretty good, but I certainly think Tom can lead this team to 10 wins and be in the tournament. And now we head to Indy, who had a solid offseason in themselves, just not quite as loud as Tampa's was. They added quarterback Phillip Rivers to the team, who has thrown for over 4,000 yards in every year but one since 2008, and will be a good addition to this team. I think it's fair to say this team would have made the playoffs had Andrew Luck played in 2019, but what happened has happened, and they had to roll into last year with Jacoby Brissett as their guy. Given the circumstances, he didn't do that bad, as he led them to a 7-8 record when he started and threw 18 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. The Colts didn't do too bad though, and should only improve in 2020. Phillip Rivers, unless Father Time gets to him immediately, will be better than Jacoby was in 2019. Improved quarterback play alone will translate to more wins, and so should the improved running game. They added Jonathan Taylor in the second round of the draft to their team, and although they already have Marlon Mack, they will still pound the rock behind players like Anthony Costanzo, Quentin Nelson, and Ryan Kelly. It cannot be said enough how good of a player Quentin Nelson is, and he will only justify spending a second round pick on a player like Jonathan Taylor. I think it's fair to say they will get 2 divisional wins right off the bat against Jacksonville, and if things go right, I don't think it's out of the question for them to go 4-2 or 5-1 in the division. They went 7-9 last year, with 6 of their losses being by 1 score, and with the improvements they made, they should win some of those games in 2020 that they unfortunately did not in 2019. I don't think they'll go 13-3 or better by any means, because that would be threatening where Kansas City and Baltimore finish, but I do think they will finish in the top 7 seeds of the conference. This is all under the assumption Phillip doesn't lose to Father Time the way Peyton did in his final year, and no injuries to the team, or at least major ones. They will be a great running team and will certainly be a team to keep an eye on. We saw how hard it is to beat a team when they have a good running game in Tennessee last year, and with the running backs this team has, plus the offensive line led by Quentin Nelson, this team will be trouble for whoever they play in January. Next is Arizona, who had a very up and down 2019 to say the least. Some positives they had were competing with San Francisco in both games they played, beating the Seahawks in Seattle, and not getting completely blown out by the Ravens when they very easily could have. Some negatives, and this is expected with a rookie quarterback, were getting killed a few times, like in New Orleans for example. The Cardinals now are the textbook definition of a team that won the offseason, and it started by fleecing the Texans for DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre has 3 seasons with over 100 receptions, 5 seasons with over 1,000 yards, and 3 seasons with double-digit touchdowns. He is a machine, and he will only help out the progression of young star Kyler Murray. Arizona had 5 losses last year by 1 score, and turning that around alone would get them to 10 wins and put them back in the postseason in a loaded NFC. I do think the Cardinals can get to the playoffs in 2020, but what scares me when predicting this team is this is the NFC version of the Browns a year later. Cardinals fans haven't had anything to be excited about since 2015, and they could very easily stumble out of the gates to a poor start like Cleveland did last year and be trying to play catch up all year. But for the sake of this video, I do think Kyler not only has 4,000 total yards again, but I do think he could be looking at his first Pro Bowl and his first 30 passing touchdown season. They also have Kenyon Drake on the offense, who is on pace for nearly 1,300 yards during his time with the team. Defensively, they have Isaiah Simmons and Patrick Peterson, and although their offense will be on paper very good, their defense will need to step up in order for this team to make the playoffs. This will be a very fun year offensively for the Cardinals, and they could end up in the playoffs assuming everything goes right. All they have to be is a top 7 seed, and I think with the progression of Kyler Murray, another year of familiarity in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and the addition of an elite receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, it is possible. And the final city we go to for today's video is Denver to discuss the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are a young team on the rise and will soon, if everything goes according to plan, be near or at least competing for the AFC West every year. While they do have to compete with Kansas City, I don't think it's out of the question for them to go 4-2 in the division in 2020. I like Denver heading into the year a lot more than other teams because of how great of a job they're doing providing weapons around quarterback Drew Lock. They have been a blueprint for how to build around a young quarterback, as he walked in from day one having Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant immediately to throw the ball to. If those 2 weapons weren't enough, John Elway went out and got him Jerry Jeudy, who was a Biletnikoff Award winner and a 2-time first-team all-conference player during his time at the University of Alabama. The Broncos then selected KJ Hamler in the 2nd round, giving the Broncos a great young receiving core of Sutton, Jeudy, Hamler, and Fant. Drew Lock has the weapons every young quarterback dreams of, and he understandably has increased expectations and pressure from everyone. We will see if he will be able to withstand that in 2020, and as you guys know, I have the Broncos going into the playoffs, so that tells you what I think of them. The Broncos finished 4-1 with Lock as their starter, and that was without all of the additions they made this offseason. In Lock's time as a starter, he had 7 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions and was 2-1 in the division. I haven't yet addressed the defensive side of the ball, but they have plenty playmakers in Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and Justin Simmons. There's not enough good things that can be said about both Von and Bradley, as they combined for 26.5 sacks in the only year they've played healthy together so far. They will each feast in 2020, and the Broncos, assuming everyone stays healthy, should go back to the postseason this year. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you ever have a suggestion for videos, please let me know in the comments. Nathaniel Henry had the topic for today's video, and if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your day. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.